we start a brand new series today called WEiRD. I don't know if you could tell that was what we were doing today. But we're starting this new thing because I want us to understand and realize that what we do to be normal and the things that we try to do in our life to be normal are actually serving to hurt us rather than help us. Normal, as we know it, is just not working. And here's something I stole from a lady. It says normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work, driving through traffic in a car that you are still paying for in order to get to a job that you need so you can pay for the clothes, car, and the house that you leave empty all day in order to afford to live in it. So that's normal. And normal is not working. It is not working for us as a society. And so this series, the main thing that I want to do with this series is show you, and I want us all to learn together, that WEiRD is better because if we are living for God, God actually does make us weird. Now, I have to be very clear from the beginning. There is a difference between weird and weirdos. Weird and weirdos are very, very, very different things. Now, in our context, weird would say, I love Jesus and I want to live my life to please him. A weirdo would say, I love Jesus and I'm going to scream at you about it. You guys understand that there's a huge difference between being weird and being a weirdo. Have you ever had an experience that left you feeling like a weirdo? Only me. Okay, so back when I was in high school, when I lived in Newport News, Virginia, Busch Gardens was a thing. Hi, Amber. I know, okay. That's funny though. Busch Gardens. You guys heard of Busch Gardens? It's like an amusement park. There's one in Williamsburg, Virginia, near where I grew up, and there's one in Florida. The one in Williamsburg is way better. But there was this ride called Questor, and I have a picture of the graphic. It's really old. You get to experience Questor. And it's one of these kind of rides where you sit in a seat and then they shake you to death while the screen moves around. You know what I mean? You remember those kind of rides? Like, it's not a real roller coaster. It's like, hey, we have some money left over. Let's do a thing and call it a roller coaster. But anyways, so we're sitting in there, and I got my best friend Chris McCarthy with me. And I think I'm probably 11th grade, 12th grade, something like that. And the idea of the ride is that you have to, like, something bad is going to happen if you don't collect all the gerbilliums. So the gerbilliums are like these jewels or whatever that you're supposed to collect throughout the ride. But so the ride lady who's running the ride comes up and she's like starts to tell us the story about whatever it is. I don't remember all the details, but I remember doing this. I remember saying, "Oh, you guys trying to trick us because the Jabil Jones and the Gerbil Jamboree and Jubba." And I couldn't, whatever like dumb thing I was trying to say about like to her about the joke that she made about gerbilliums just left everybody going like this. What is wrong? So that's my only weirdo experience that I've ever had in my entire life. It's only been one, I promise. I am not talking about us becoming or being weirdos. I'm talking about being weird because normal is not working. I'm talking about being weird to our friends and to our families because maybe something like this goes on. And this is what I mean by being weird. You don't drink alcohol because you don't want to get drunk and sin against God. Or you don't live together with someone that you're engaged to before you're married because you don't want to sin against God and all your friends and your family think it's weird. I'm talking about you don't miss church because your kids are playing a sport and your friends think you're weird because of that. I'm talking about saying no to stuff that normal people do because you would rather please Jesus. The normal things of our life are just not working, or they work just long enough to fail us in spectacular fashion. Something has got to change. We have got to be weird. Being normal often leads us into places and positions where we end up disappointing ourselves and disappointing Jesus. What is it with this desire for us to fit in? We have a big, strong desire to fit in to whatever is going on in our society. By the way, I'll give you an example. How many of you are watching the Super Bowl today? Some of you are going to watch it. You couldn't care less about football, but you don't want to be the only doofus at work tomorrow who didn't have anything to say about the big game, right? By the way, San Francisco?
Yes.
All right. And the other one? Jeez. All right. But we go to pretty extreme lengths to fit in, to be exactly like everyone else. We buy the same kind of cars. Next time you're in traffic, just look around at how many people have the exact same car. Look around when you go to work and see how many people have the same clothes on as you. And all of these things that we do to fit in and to feel normal. But all of this normal contributes to depression and anxiety in ways that we can't even calculate right now. Fitting in is not what we need to do. We need to be weird. In our society, and I want you to see this, in our society, it is weird to read the Bible, listen to God's word, and put it into practice. It's weird. You ever tell somebody that you read the Bible? Is their reaction, hey, that's great. I read it too. Or is it, right? In our society, it's weird to read the Bible, to listen to God's word, and to put it into practice. And this is the kind of weird that I fully believe that Jesus is calling us to. I'm willing to bet that every last one of us in one point or another of our life has felt the frustration of fitting in to normal life. And at some point, I bet all of us have been able to ask ourselves this question: what is it all for? What is this all for? What are we doing with this life? What is this all for? We struggle, we get in the wheel, we run the race, we do all of the things that we do, and we just fit in to everything that's going on in every other aspect of life. And sometimes I bet we've asked ourselves, what is this all for? We get frustrated. We get frustrated with debt. We get frustrated with bills. We get frustrated with work. We get frustrated with family stresses. And we've all had those feelings when we ask this question, what is this all for? So I want to tell you what I believe to be the antidote to all of this normalcy, to all of the things that we are striving for. I think that there is an antidote. It's one word. What do you think it is?
Jesus.
Wrong.
Weird.
It's not Jesus. The antidote is holiness. The antidote to all of this frustration, to all of this fitting in, to all of this striving to be normal, to all of this stuff that is not working, is holiness. Now, holiness is one of the weirdest words we have in church. And if we use the word holy outside of church, it's almost exclusively derogatory. You know what I mean? Like, oh, and he's so, what's it like that holier than thou? Oh, that person thinks they're holier than thou. Which, by the way, who talks like that anymore? Who says thou in any part of conversation ever? Or I've heard some women say things like, and even men say things like, oh, she thinks she's so holy. Very snidely and very rude. And guys say, oh, you think you're better than me. You think you're better than me. That's not what we're talking about with holiness. I think we have a misunderstanding of holiness. So let's see what God says about holiness. Look at this passage from Leviticus 11:45. God says, I am the Lord who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. Therefore, be holy because I am holy. Be holy because I am holy. Now, I want you to just kind of stay with me for the next 13 seconds while I say this. We have skipped a lot of the Bible to get to Leviticus. I don't know if you were here last week and you remember that we're kind of doing this survey of the entire Bible. And last week we were in like Genesis 9 or 10. And now we've skipped a whole entire book and we've gotten to Leviticus. And so let me just give you a quick overview of what happened. Very, very quick overview. The Israelite people, the Jewish people, they have gone into slavery in Egypt. God has sent Moses into Egypt to say, let my people go. Eventually, the Pharaoh of Egypt let God's people go, let the Jewish people go, because God said, I have a land for you. I'm going to promise you this land. You're going to get there. It's going to be awesome. And so the Israelites leave Egypt. They walk through the Dead Sea on dry land. I mean, there's a lot of great, cool things that are going on here. And they get to the front door of the promised land, and they're too cowardly to take it. And so what does God do but send them on a 40-year walk in the desert? And so this is where we pick up what's going on in Leviticus. God, as he is speaking to the Israelite people, he is reminding them, I'm here for your protection. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to take care of you. You are mine. And then he gives them this stern yet loving reminder. I am the Lord. I am the Lord. I'm the one who brought you up out of Egypt. You be holy, because I am holy. Now, I think we have to understand, what does holy mean? Because if we don't understand what does holy mean, then we get into a lot of big mix-ups. Holy means different. Holy means set apart. Holy means weird. Holy means that something or someone has been set apart for a different purpose. Not that they are better or that they have earned anything more of God's love. Holy just means that they are different, that they are set apart. An ordinary thing, an ordinary person has been claimed by God for his purpose. Holy is when an ordinary person, you and me, we get claimed by God for his purpose. And so when he says, be holy because I am holy, he is saying, I have set you apart for something different. God has claimed us. God has claimed our lives for something different. We can be holy because God has laid claim to us, and he claims us for his purposes. Let me illustrate this with just a quick little thing here. So this is a toothbrush. Hopefully you guys all know what that is. Hopefully you all used one of these this morning. Now, this is a brand new one, so I'm not going to open it and waste it just for this thing, just a little exercise here. But I want you to understand, a toothbrush has about a bajillion purposes, like a bajillion uses for a toothbrush, right? Have you ever cleaned your shoes with a toothbrush? Right, that's one of the purposes. You ever brush your teeth with that same toothbrush after you clean your shoes? No, you haven't, because first of all, we live in a society. We're trying to have, rules and stuff, all right? So we don't do weird stuff like that. Once the toothbrush is claimed for that purpose, that's it, right? You brush your teeth with it, you don't clean your shoes, and then go back to brushing your teeth. It has been claimed for that purpose. Does that make sense to everybody? And so that's what I'm saying here. There's a million things that we could do in our life, but God claims us for his purpose. He sets us apart. He pulls us out of the pit. He makes us weird for his purpose. You don't go back and forth. And I think that's something that we forget. When we talk about giving our life to Jesus, we forget that we should not be going back and forth. We've been claimed for a purpose. And here's what we have to understand. We do not make ourselves holy. God does that. God claims us. God sets us apart. He is the one who makes us holy. Holiness is our response to that. God claims us. He sets us apart. He reaches out and he says, mine. That's mine now. You are mine now. And then how we live is the operation of holiness. God claims us, and then when we live for him, that is our holiness. It is not based on earning something else from God. It's because God has claimed us. Holiness means that we are living in the purpose that God has claimed us for. It happens when God shows up, not when we show up, not when we do something. It happens because God claims us for his purpose. When you give yourself to Jesus, when God claims you, You're still the same person with a different purpose. I think that's a misunderstanding that happens in Christianity a lot. I'm going to start going to church and I'm going to be this totally different person and nobody's going to recognize me and all this stuff. And like now I have to start wearing a suit and tie and nonsense like that. You're the same person. And here's what I also think that we forget to understand. Just because you give yourself to Jesus, it doesn't mean that your sin struggles stop automatically. If you give your life to Jesus and you struggle with anxiety or depression or anything, guess what? You're still going to have that. But now you've been claimed by God and you have a different purpose, a different focus in your life. The same person with a different purpose. God claims us for his purposes. But we have to figure out what that means for us in our own specific contexts. How do we live in holiness in our own specific context, in our job? When we're driving at Wegmans, with our family, whatever that thing might be. How do we practice holiness? I want you to look at this passage from Romans chapter 12. This is the Apostle Paul writing. This is another person from the Bible where God directly reached out, grabbed him by his hair, pulled him up, slapped him around, said, I claim you, you're mine. And this is what Paul writes about holiness. Because I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy. Okay, in view of God's mercy means because God has been merciful to us, because God has been merciful to you, when we did not deserve mercy, by the way. Because God has been merciful, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. This is how we live in holiness. We have to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice. You guys get that? That's a metaphor, right? So in the Old Testament and in a lot of ancient religions, they would sacrifice animals, right? They would sacrifice animals. A lot of times they would set them on fire when they were done. That animal or whatever was a sacrifice. It was dead at that point. Like, you know what I mean? Like usually if you cut somebody or a thing in half, it's gone. Like you don't get to... No? Okay. So you cut it, so they were dead, but Paul is saying, offer yourself, offer your life as a living sacrifice. You stay alive in God's purpose, claimed by God, doing what God has for you, what he has laid out for you sacrificially. We do that as a living sacrifice because it is holy and pleasing to God to worship him that way. This is your true and proper worship. And he says, do not conform. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's a hard one. I want to say that has nothing to do with what you drive or what you wear, or whether or not you have tattoos, or what kind of shoes you put on. When Paul says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, he is saying, be weird. Be weird. Not a weirdo. Be weird. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How is your mind renewed? It is renewed by God's word. If we go our entire lives coming to church, and let's say you give so much of your money to the church and you do all this service stuff and all this stuff, but you never ever look into God's word and allow his word to transform your mind, then you're just the same. You never grow. You're the same as everybody else in the world. Paul is pushing us to be weird in this passage, and I'm going to tell you, it will be met with challenges. It will be met with challenges. You'll have to wrestle. Sex tonight or a strong marriage later? Speak my mind? Give him a piece of my mind? Or build a lasting relationship? Steal or keep my integrity? Skip worship because my kids are playing sports? Or show them that worshiping Jesus is a priority? There's a difficulty in delaying gratification, which inevitably makes us weird to our friends. But that is the exact kind of weird that we are called to in this passage. To live differently. To live our lives differently. God is giving us a greater purpose in this world. It is a sacrifice to live differently. I want you to know that I understand that. I'm not like blind to that idea. It is a sacrifice to live differently. It is a sacrifice to not dive into all of the things that your friends or family or whoever it is might be doing. But if we've given our lives to him, we've been claimed for something greater. And this is the thing, like, God doesn't just pull us up and claim us and say, now you do this thing. Like, we have to accept that claiming. And so if we've given our lives to him, we've been claimed for something greater. And I think that realizing that makes it easier for us to say, I can't do that thing. I can't speak my mind in that situation. That's not my purpose. That's not why I'm here. I've been set apart for something different. And if that's weird to you, then so be it. If it's weird to you that I'm not going to dive into this dumb thing that you want to do, then so be it. I can't do that. That is not my purpose. God has claimed me for something more. God has set me apart. He is making me holy. He is making me weird. What if you actually focused on being weird? Again, not a weirdo, being weird. What if you focused on being different, to being set apart, to being holy in your life? Here's something that I want you to do today. Something I want you to think about today and this week and all throughout our entire series. And I'm going to have it on the screen here. I want to show you this question. Will this prove to myself and others that I am God's son or God's daughter? This is a question that you can ask yourself anytime. The next step that I take in this, the next word that comes out of my mouth, the next action from my body, will this prove to myself and others that I am God's son, that I am God's daughter? Or will it say something else? Will my actions say something other than the fact that I am God's son or that I am God's daughter? If the action you're about to take says the opposite, don't do it. Be the weird one. Be the weird one. Be the weird one who goes on a business trip and doesn't go to the strip club with everybody else or go get drunk with everybody else. Be the weird one who does not gossip in your friend circle. Be the weird one who does not and refuses to allow other people to tear someone else down. Be that weird person who does not complain about every single thing again and again. Let's be weird. Be the weird family that makes Sunday morning worship of Jesus a priority in your life over everything else. Be the weird person who says, you know what? I want to go out to Beacon Skiff and pick apples in September, because that's like, in September people do that here. They just go, you know what? Peace out, Jesus. I got to pull some apples. So, I don't know, if you remember like the early part of the Bible, apples got us into trouble, and so, but be the weird person who who types in your group chat, can't do it, church isn't over until whatever o'clock, right? I'll be there when I'm done with church. Be the weird people that do that. Be the ones who set that example. Be the ones who live into the holiness. Understand, our goal is not to grab onto normalcy. Our goal is to live in the holiness and in the purpose that God has claimed us for. Our goal is to live in the holiness and purpose that God has claimed us for. Normal isn't working. We've got to strive toward holiness. We've got to strive to be weird, to live on purpose for God. Now, chances are good that you could plant a flag today. And you can say, you know what, I'm going to do everything I can to be weird. I'm going to do everything I can to live in holiness. And you can set that resolve in your life, and you can work as hard as you want to live out and to live into that purpose and to live your life being weird for God. You can do all of that today and fail tomorrow. And so I know that that's a possibility for every single one of us, to plant a flag, say, yep, I'm going to do this, I'm going to live for God, I'm going to do this thing, and then we lose sight of it somehow, and then we fail. And so maybe today you're like, you know what? Let's get weird. It's time to get weird in our life. I want to show you a passage that I think you can make your prayer. This comes from the book of Psalms. David writes, create in me a what? A pure heart, oh God. Okay, so there's a lot in that. First thing, and the only thing I want to say about it is, we can't create in ourselves a pure heart. We can't create in ourselves a pure heart. You ever wonder why you can't stop doing the dumb thing that you keep doing? It's because we can't create in ourselves a pure heart. This is something that God does. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. I am willing to continue being weird for you, because normal is not working. Every Sunday at this church, we participate in something called communion. And it is a time where we remember what Jesus did on the cross for us. We remember his death. We remember his blood being shed for us. And we remember it by using crackers and juice. We have 3 tables around the room. And over here is one with a gluten-free option, one in the back and one on this side as well. We're going to leave this passage up on the screen. And today, what I want to do is, as you take your communion, I would encourage you to go, grab the cups, come back, make this your prayer. Make this verse your prayer. And ask God to work in you, to create in you a pure heart, to renew a steadfast spirit within you, to restore joy into your life. And let's do that today as we remember and celebrate together what Jesus did for us on the cross. Also, can I just encourage you during this time, use this as a time to be contemplative, to think about what's going on, to think about the words we've just read from the Bible, to think about that stuff. Let's not use this as a time to catch up with somebody that we didn't see before church started. But let's use this as a time to focus in on how we want God to work in our lives. You are dismissed.